I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Welcome, everyone,
to the first episode of Biased Reactions for Lost Omens, Gods, and Magic.
That's right, and just like always, we begin our biased reactions with a new book by biasedly reacting to the cover.
But it's easy to be biased about this cover.
This cover is so cool, because, Pathfinder books are always have a cover that's, some kind of extremely well done. Here's an iconic, and there's an iconic, and here's a monster, and they're fighting that monster. And it always looks cool, but it can get, somewhat repetitive that it's always that. But this cover is not repetitive because it's very different. And we've seen some that came after that were also different, like Lost Omens Legends with, the movie poster style cover that had, the faces of the different people. This one, though, is really awesome because it's a triptych, which is a type of art in real life, which would sometimes present, three different panels that were on a related religious topic. And this time the topic is the Starstone. So you've got the Starstone at the top, and
surrounded by all of these skeletons to represent the failed aspirants for godhood.
That's right. And then at the bottom you have three deities who ascended via the Starstone: Caden, Kalian, Iomedae, and Norgorber. So, and then they each have a little scene behind them, like a tavern, or there's a castle, and then there's the dark and spider web laden place. And
Norgorber's not going to let you see where he is.
But those represent those are sort of iconic of a triptych that you have these different scenes. Triptychs don't always have one big figure in the front of them, but it just really, really works for this composition. And then it's got the little triptych frame, because sometimes you'll see a triptych architecturally built into a particular place in a place of worship, or even if not, then the frame is part of the triptych.
There's a comment that Norgorber makes a great adversary called absolutely, because with Norgorber, you never know if you've fully defeated your adversary. They could be coming out of any direction. They might have any sort of plot, and they have protections against being found out too quickly.
That's right. So, let's take a look at what we've got here in the table of contents. So, as you can see, there's a lot of great stuff here in the table of contents. There are just many different authors, such as Robert Aducci, Amir Ali, Attar Aliai, Calder David, James Case, Adam Daigle, Katina Davis, Leo Glass, Joshua Grinlington, James Jacobs, Virginia Jordan, Jason Keeley, Jackie Leung, Liz Liddell, Ron Lundeen, Stephanie Lundeen, Jacob W. Michaels, Matt Morris, Dave Nelson, Samantha Phelan, Jennifer Povey, Jessica Redicop, Nathan Reinecke, Patrick Reaney, David N. Ross, Simone DeSalle, Michael Sayer, David Schwartz, Sharina Shirani, Isabel Thorne, Mark Thuat, Jason Tondro, and Diego Valdez. Plus, development leads Eleanor Farron and Luis Loza, design lead Mark Seifter, editing lead James Case, and of course, tons of artists, the whole editing team chipping in as always. Cover artist Katerina Burmack, like all of the Lost Omens. They are great. And with art direction by Sarah Robinson and page layout by Sonia Morris. And of course, the creative director and publisher are always the same. But the project manager, we've gone back in time enough to get back to Gabe. Mm-hmm. So, that's what we've got in terms of people who contributed to this book. In terms of the actual table of contents, it's kind of interesting because of the fact that it has little descriptions of what each of the sections is, which not every table of contents does. Sometimes they're just the name of the chapter and then subsections in those pages, so you can see where we're going to go with an overview and the 20 core deities, and then some extra deities then plus demigods, other divinities, philosophies, spirituality, character options, feats, spells, domains, items, weapons, and of course, everyone's favorite, appendix.
Well, this appendix, though, is quite lengthy because it provides the basic rules for a huge number of deities.
Yes, it is an appendix that was like Eleanor's Boldy that she had to roll up that hill and have it roll back with more deities.
Yes. And the interesting thing about that is that, like, it covers a large percentage of all deities introduced in the Galarian canon.
But it's
like,
not all of them because they wouldn't all fit.
But yeah, it's still quite extensive. So you can see also here the art that splits across both parts of the spread of Sela battling against some ferocious creatures here. Those
I think those are Sustodavans, but they may not be.
No, I think they are. I think you're right.
And then of course
Bry here.
Yep.
With some of her many clockwork wonders.
That's right. So that's what we've got in this very biased table of contents. Shall we move on to the 2-page opener art? So in this art, as you can see here, you've got Desna
and
Tsukio, who are teaming up to face against Lamashtu, as well as like a bunch of spiritual things that are coming out of Lamashtu's breath / and or just shoulders, and then a pile of carrion. Good team up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the overview has a nice picture of the Desna, Sarenrae, Shelyn relationship at the top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the overview is important because, first of all, it's also an overview and not an introduction, which is unusual at the beginning of the book, but it's also talking about, like, the importance of faith and what it means in a fantasy world, and the way belief matters to a character, and can kind of shape your player character if you're a PC, or the NPCs if you're the GM. The role of gods in, like, the setting and the cosmos, and then sort of explains the type of rules elements in the book, such as a brand new type of rules element that's introduced in here, alternate domains, where you can have a deity who has alternate domains that are not really their main 4, but that you can take expanded domain initiate feat to get one of the extra expanded alternate domains, plus a very cool feat called Splinter Faith that I think I came up with during the design pass when Eleanor and Louise were looking for something that could give this kind of a character to you, which is someone who follows a really weird version of their deity that is so far off from, like, what other people are doing with that deity that it even has a domain that's just not even in there, as long as it's not, like, literally anathematic to your deity. So, like, you can't follow the Splinter Faith of Pharasma that's all about raising undead.
Yes.
Or the Splinter Faith of Shelyn that's about hatred. But here, it's like, I'm not sure. This may be someone who's following a Splinter Faith of Shelyn that's about raking. Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of things it could be. Or someone who's changing their religion from Shelyn to Erastil, because there's also a section on changing faith. And while it's not, like, super difficult to implement it, there were technically not rules for... There were some rules for the situation where, like, you anger your deity, and then...
That's a follower of Erastil.
It is a follower of Erastil. Perfect. Now we know. The rake did seem pretty Erastilish. So there... And maybe she's considering the rake for a change of faith. So, like, the rules before were, like, you anger your deity, and, hey, you know what? You can atone to your deity, but there's also a lot of stories where it's like, you anger Erastil by being like, I don't care about families or the community, I'm just gonna go out and adventure on my own, and Erastil's like, no, this is bad, you can't just go out and adventure on your own. It's like, yeah, I want to travel the world, and I'm also chaotic now. And Russell's like, I don't like this at all. But then Desna's like, hey, you sound like good for me. Why don't you join me? And that happens sometimes in stories, and with the changing faith rules, you too can change faith to a different deity that like more follows where your character is going.
Thanks for gifting a sub, Elf.
Mm-hmm. And so the changing faith rules are really important because of the fact that I mean, you could have probably come up with rules that were pretty similar, but maybe you didn't want to have to, and now you have them.
And then there are rules for divine intercessions.
Oh, those are awesome.
Yes, and as it says here, you know, the gods aren't going to go around interceding anytime that somebody does something that is in their portfolio
or that they don't like,
or that they don't like. Otherwise, the entire world would be a petty battleground for the deities in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever followers perform particularly significant tasks that change things in a way that they value, or somebody or somebody who does something that is like it. Somebody does something that causes a major issue or is completely against their beliefs, particularly somebody who is a follower of them who's completely messes that up, then you might see divine intercessions come in play.
Also of note, if you did not know this, but not all of the divine intercessions for the lesser or like kind of second tier deities made it into the book, and there's a web supplement that has them. So you can get even more divine intercessions than you knew about if you didn't know about those. But if you did know about them, then you can't get more divine intercessions than you knew about. After that, there's a brand new background here in the overview. So this was another cool example of sort of like working together and coming up with a new idea, is the raised by belief background. So there was initially an idea for the book that like maybe every deity would have a background that would give an ability boost, a set of 2 ability boosts that was in that deity's background. It would be like raised by Asmodeans, and it would have 2 ability boosts for them, and it would have an associated skill, which is the same one for the cleric, and you would get that in there, and then you would gain some kind of a skill feat, and then Asmodean lore, right? But then they would have it for every deity. But the problem was that like there's only so much you can fit, and already there wasn't enough room for those divine intercessions. So Eleanor and Luis and I talked together, and I suggested, well, maybe we can find a way to create one background that can do all of that, and then give us more space for other awesome stuff. And we worked together and wound up with Raised by Belief. And then that meant that the deities would have in their entry a divine ability entry, which Eleanor and Luis added to all the deities, so that that would work out.
Speaking of Luis has something else to add about the document. The supplement document also has guidance for making your own intercessions.
Yeah. Why would you not want to make your own intercessions for the deities who don't get the intercessions of either of the two? Because intercessions are awesome.
Or if you have your own deities that you want to make intercessions for.
Or if you want to make an intercession with the 40 deities who have intercessions, but you're like, I don't exactly want this intercession because it's a little bit inaccurate. Like, it's a sort of an one about angering Shelyn with love, but this is like with art, and I want an art-based Shelyn negative intercession.
Yeah. Speaking of Shelyn, Steven asked what deity would we follow. I would totally be a Shelynite if Shelyn were real.
I'll praise Shelyn, the Eternal Rose.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see. We've got Favored Weapon, which is just talking about Favored Weapon, which is already in the core rulebook, but mentioning that Favored Weapons are very important and why. And then there's theme templates, which if we get into the biased reactions for Lost Omens characters guide, that's where they were sort of invented in Lost Omens character guide to be a type of thing that would be kind of give you the maximum amount of feeling like you're making an NPC or monster fit into a theme for the minimum amount of adjusting them, and in terms of page space, in terms of how much work you have to do adjusting that character. And so the theme templates are another example where, in theory, we might have had theme templates for every deity, but that definitely did not fit. And so we came up with a way to create a theme template that would work for any deity with this deity theme template, which, as you can see here, you can add in the deity's traits and favored weapons, and boost simple damage with the deity's favored weapon if it's simple. Get some domain spells from the deity, some of the spells that the deity grants to clerics, and then eventually give them all of the special spells that the deity grants. So it was chosen very specifically to be something that every deity has. Obviously, you can adjust that theme template to something else that really fits a specific deity if you want to, but this particular template was like kind of chosen because every deity has an advanced domain of some domain and has 3 spells or more that they grant to their characters, to the clerics who worship them, and they all have a favored weapon, so you can do this theme template anytime. So as I was saying, the overview has a lot more than you might have thought. And I know some people skip the intros, even though there is cool stuff in all the intros, but this one you definitely didn't want to skip. Speaking of which...
Speaking of introductions...
Here we have a... you can see like the double truck on the top where Desna and Sarenrae and Ravagug is there and being fought. Even Asmodeus is helping
there
out.
Too. He's helping.
He's helping. Who's over there on the right?
Asmodeus wants to make sure that you don't forget that he was there.
Yeah, but who's on the right? Let's see. It's a little bit small. Let me zoom in.
I'm not quite sure, but we might
figure out... It's probably Callistria because it's riding on a bug. Now that I have zoomed in.
Yeah, that's gonna be Callistria.
Because riding on a wasp, gotta be Callistria.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, zooming out. So, this is sort of a second intro called Gods of the Inner Sea that explains how do you read these deity entries, because they've got a lot of stuff in there. And, basically, we're gonna get the name, the alignment, the realm where the deity lives, and you might be like, well, that's obvious, the lawful ones live on heaven, but a lot of them actually randomly live in a completely different place than you would think, so it's good to check who's their allies and enemies, if they're in a relationship, important temples and what happens with their temples, worshippers who tend to worship them, their sacred animal and color, and those 2 divine ability boosts for the background, plus alternate domains that are added. This is all information that all of them have. However, there's other information that the non-core deities have that repeats information that's in the core rulebook. For space reasons, to get more information on the core deities, it did not reprint and rehash their areas of concern, divine font, divine ability score, divine skill, regular domains, cleric spells, edicts, anathema, and favored weapon, if those were already in the core rulebook, because you probably were looking for like brand new or useful stuff that can combine with that.
So as you can see already, there's a huge amount of effort in this book that went into making sure that you get as much bang for your buck as possible in terms of new and interesting content and things that you can use for all of your characters.
It's actually really tricky when you're on and this is one of like the first 3 Lost Omens that were like that set that came out very close to each other that was super popular. And it's very tough when you're being like, this is the first Gods book and you want to fit what you're going to fit in there. What are you going to get? And, Eleanor and Luis did an amazing job of giving you tons of really cool stuff. And, you know, sometimes when it was a rule, I helped a little bit too. Mm-hmm. So, we've got Abadar.
Abadar, the master of the First Vault.
Lives in Octoon.
Looking very serious and focused here.
Allies, all these lawful people and Shelad. Enemies, all these chaotic people and Norgorber. So, as you can see here, yeah, there's a really cool, serious picture of Abadar with scrolls and a book. And on the right side, though, is an even cooler picture of Abadar, which is maybe hard to see, but because of the coloration, and you might have to zoom in, but it is basically a bas relief of Abadar in as he would be depicted in Tian Sha. Because it says in even in first edition for Pathfinder, it said like all the deities are depicted differently in different places. They don't necessarily have one canonical look. But then after that, we kind of it was like first edition's Gods of Magic, a very early book that actually is really a 3.5 book.
Yeah.
But then after that, we kind of depicted them exactly the same everywhere because otherwise you're not going to know who it is, and you'll be like, who is that? Oh, it's probably Calistria because she's riding on a wasp. And so this book really takes the chance to give you a depiction that is like the one that you kind of know, and then also another one just so that you remember that there are lots of different depictions of each deity, and there's some really cool ones from all throughout the world of Golarion. And that's what you can see there. And there's going to be more of those. So there's a lot of information about Abadar and Abadar's divine intercessions, where he can warn people that he likes about those who are going to lie, and basically turn someone's lie into a critical failure so that you automatically know what the truth was. Or bless your enterprises to do well, or give you a silver tongue that lets you broker negotiations super ridiculously. And his curses, when you break the law, like, you can write things on your skin about your crimes that could not be removed or hidden with makeup. You can just try to cover up with clothes. And his moderate curse, where your enterprises have disaster and are always 1 degree of success worse than the one you rolled, which means basically, if you're trying to make a living, you're going to have to do something you'll critically succeed at almost all the time, or else the best you can do is fail, and you'll usually get fired a lot.
Yeah.
And then major curse is you become honest to a fault, and you're always critically failure in a zone of truth, which means you have to blurt out, like, all the truth, and are always offered the worst possible option in any bargain. So, it's really not good.
That's for sure, yeah.
And his aphorisms are really great because you can say them as your character if you worship that deity. So it's like, by Abadar's gaze, the deal is sealed. That's pretty obvious when you would say that. Or, from Abadar's vault, for something of high quality. And so it is judged. When things kind of work out in the way of justice. So, like, if you were chasing after a criminal who was, like, knocked over a fruit cart to steal some fruit, and then, like, later on in the chase, some of the fruit were coming down the hill from there, and they tripped over a melon and fell over, and you caught them, you might be like, so it is judged.
Yes.
So that's Abadar. Linda, why don't you talk about Asmodeus?
Asmodeus.
Do you want to talk about Asmodeus as a as an endorsement?
As you can see here, we have the entry for Asmodeus, an eminently practical and powerful deity who is the god of contracts, pride, slavery, and my favorite, tyranny. Asmodeus is the first, the Dark Prince, the Lord of Darkness and Law, and the ruler of the Plane of Hell. He is unquestionably one of the oldest beings of the multiverse, and in the before time, he and his brother Ibis were among the first gods in existence. They quarreled, and Asmodeus, as the superior of them, slew his brother.
What are Asmodeus' divine ability scores? Every other deity has 2 that you have to choose from.
You can choose any divine abilities because Asmodeus is the best deity to follow. When you do so, you also gain the boon of getting to bind your soul to the Dark Prince for all eternity. Why would you want to risk being caught up in the affairs of other deities?
So you get 2 benefits
Yes.
over other deities. Wow. Okay. Uh, what are some of the aphorisms of Asmodeus?
Great is Asmodeus, which everyone should really be proclaiming. Proclaim with pride, of course, to know of his inevitable rule. What once was his shall be again. Because Asmodeus once ruled over all of the multiverse, so really anything that exists should be his again. By his flames is a cry for help, a request for divine intervention. You should not invoke this phrase lightly, however, because Asmodeus is not one of those pushover good gods who will just give you something for free. No, Asmodeus is the pinnacle of order, and he will charge a price for his aid.
What kind of boons might he give you?
Asmodeus might amplify your skills, allowing you to, at negotiation, allowing you to use a suggestion to make people more receptive to your influence. He might also help you enforce your bargains and contracts by preventing those who entered contracts of their own free will from violating their bargains that they make with you. He could also cause your eyes to glow red like embers and give you and your skin to take on a crimson tone and a pale imitation of his own splendor, which would grant you dark vision and fire resistance. But if you anger Asmodeus, then you're going to be in for quite a bad time. Asmodeus could curse you with a weakness to flames, not just his flames, but all flames, which are technically all his, because what once was his shall be again. With his moderate curse, he could force your compliance, stopping you from voluntarily backing out of agreements or going back on your word. Or with his major curse, you could receive an ancient wound that feels older than time itself, leaving you drained at all times, and causing it to aches fiercely whenever you perform chaotic acts, making you sicken 1.
All right. So that's Asmodeus.
Alright, that was a biased reaction to Asmodeus.
Yeah, well, we said it was a biased reaction. I mean, we could have done an Abigail reaction to Calistria about, like, she's so chaotic.
But... Yes, but I don't necessarily want to invite Calistria's vengeance by describing her in less than favorable terms.
So, Calistria, of course, the goddess of lust, revenge, and trickery, is the savored sting. Beloved by elves and hedonists and performers and thieves and scorned lovers and wasps. So, Calistria...
For real, though, be careful with what you wish for with Asmodeus, because as you may have seen in the Infernal Contract in Legends, whenever you get into a contract with any devil, there's going to be all sorts of loopholes that are going to have you in for a bad time. And if you think you can outsmart Asmodeus, then that arrogance will be your downfall.
Philip Ben says, Linda makes a good Abigail. Well, some of the more recent art of Abigail has had Linda's picture as a, like, the picture sent to the artist for...
Well, now it's
but
like
that's
the
because
picture,
there was originally a picture, and then Linda did a cosplay based on that, and then there was a picture based on her cosplay.
And then that one became the more modern one.
Yep.
So yeah, I have
Linda is partially the model for the modern depictions of Abigail. That's true. So some aphorisms for Calistria are, love the food, not the chef. When you're looking for something that you desire or revenge... Calistria says, don't get too consumed by that. If you do, then you're not really being chaotic, are you? You're kind of lawfully just being like, I'm only about this one revenge or thing that I'm going after. And then see to your own wounds first is when you're wronged, or someone else is wrong, you might want to retaliate immediately, but you should make sure you're okay and ready to get your revenge successfully, rather than being like, I'm almost dead, but now I must get my revenge before healing up.
Mm-hmm. Well, who does that, in terms of who does that make Mark if I'm Abigail? We've talked about how that could make him the pit fiend General Gortek.
That's right. I could be General Gortek, curbing Abigail's worst influences. The pit fiend is actually calming down Abigail because she's just that Linda-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So, what can Callistria do, the goddess of revenge? Well, you can bet her curses are not going to be good, but she can give you boons. She can help you to lie better. She can give you a little wasp friend that follows you around, and she can let you always know the direction and distance toward the nearest creature that has wronged you and thus far gone unpunished, so that you can get revenge. Her curses, well, her minor curse is giving you poisoned by a wasp, just randomly. You're suddenly stung.
Yes, whenever someone desires vengeance against you.
Yes, that's not just once. Just anytime you do anything and someone wants vengeance against you, you get stung. That's the minor curse. Moderate curse is people react as though you're insulting them, even in normal conversation. So when you make an impression, you make a worse impression than you were trying to make. It's almost impossible to make a good impression. You'd have to critically succeed. If you converse with someone over a long enough period of time but don't attempt to make an impression, you still insult them and get a critical failure on making an impression.
So you can't try to be like,
I'm
angry. Not trying to roll making impressions.
I'm just talking to them for a minute. Okay, well, they hate you now.
Yeah.
And then major curse, you have wronged those unable to retain revenge for themselves. Callistria's curse grants their revenge its own life. Whenever a creature imagining vengeance upon you can't pursue the vengeance because you're too powerful or well-connected or something, a creature of roughly your level manifests out of their imagination and performs their desired revenge, like a brainchild. Once the revenge is complete or the manifestation is destroyed, that particular summoned creature vanishes from existence. So that way, like, if you anger like 100 peasants and you're 15th level, 100.
And you're just like, I don't care about the vengeance.
115th level creatures will come after you.
Yes.
And maybe not to kill you, it says to get their revenge.
Fair enough, yeah.
Like, if you anger the peasants and you burn down their farms, they're probably maybe going to burn down your giant wizard tower with 115th level creatures and then not kill you.
If you took your, if you angered the peasants by like levying oppressive taxes, they might come in and take all of your money
with 115th level characters.
Yes.
Yep, that's true. All right. It looks like Yossarian used the wasp friend reward from Callistria, but it got kidnapped by gargoyles.
Oh no! Those gargoyles are going to be in for a bad time, kidnapping a blessing from Callistria.
That's true. That's like asking for revenge from the Callistrian at the very least.
Yes.
Alright, so Caden Kalian, the accidental god, who kind of went drinking and like, was like, I can't remember what happened last night, but oh my gosh, I'm a god now! That's wild. And Caden Kalian is a very unusual deity whose herald is like his old friend from his adventuring days and is one of those ascended who you saw on the cover. His aphorisms are, I'm great, but not so great as Caden Kalian.
He doesn't really do the whole formal churches and structured clergy thing. He's more like, there's shrines to him in many taverns.
Yep. And I'm great, but not so great as Caden Kalian is because they often have boasts and drunken boasts and challenges, and if they think it's gone too far, it's like, this is like asking me to take the test of the Starstone. We've gone too far on this dare. May your life be as free as your taps is a toast or a farewell. And sweet barley brew is amazement, frustration, or a simple curse. Plus, intercessions. Caden can help you recover from carousing and deal with never being hungover as a minor boon. That's very useful for his followers. As moderate, when you successfully save against fear, you get a critical success. If you have fighter bravery, you get a failure instead of a critical failure, which can be very handy. With a major boon, you break fetters with ease because he's also the god of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
The end of each turn, you could end an effect make you immobilized, including effects like grabbing that immobilize you as a free action. Then his minor curse, is that you awaken as if from a hard night of drinking and find the drink tastes foul to you. His moderate curse makes you cowardly. When critical success on fear effects, you only get a success, and a failure becomes a critical failure, which can be real bad because critical failures sometimes make you run away. And then major curse is whenever any creature drinks alcohol within 100 feet of you, you suffer all negative effects from the alcohol instead. This doesn't apply if the creature gains any special effect from drinking the alcohol. So you basically are like a
sponge of all the hangovers.
For all of the hangovers and negative effects of the alcohol. Yeah. Alright, what about Desna, Linda?
Desna, the Song of the Spheres, goddess of dreams, luck, stars, and travelers. You have, so you have her, with her, she is one of the most ancient of the deities in Galarion. She provides safe passage, to travelers. She herself journeys without end, and, can sometimes be, and she herself journeys without end, continuing freely wherever she wants to go, and she prefers to have more of a carefree existence. She's not going to be bound by any sort of strictures and doesn't want her followers to be as well. She encourages her followers to follow their passions and their inspirations as well. Her churches, as befitting that, don't really have structure and authority and hierarchy so much. And most of her centers of worships are shrines that don't have permanent attendance, but are rather places for travelers to come upon and find. And here we have, just as before, we have another depiction of Desna up in the upper right corner.
Yep, that's it gives you an example of the fact that Desna is not always like that.
That more elf.
That like random elfy that with diaphanous, not clothes, but you can see that Desna has depictions across the globe.
Yes.
Plus, there's aphorisms. Desna has the most aphorisms.
A copper for the song, a copper for the road. It's customary to pay a Desna bard 2 coppers. The first out of respect for Desna, and the second to acknowledge the skill. Or either acknowledge the bard's skill, or to be like, okay, yeah, now please move on. We're tired of your out of tune caterwauling.
A star cannot see its place in the sky, to show you that since the stars are doing something, they have a constellation, they have a purpose, but that doesn't mean they always know what that is.
Be ready for challenges and unexpected friends. Worshippers should train in combat or magic so they can overcome adverse situations in their travels. If you're going to be someone who's traveling into unexpected places, that doesn't mean being free-spirited doesn't mean not being prepared.
Learn from what is different is pretty self-explanatory. It's almost not an aphorism and more of like a belief.
And you are never lost following butterflies. Desna's faithful trust their intuition and the signs that their goddess provides them.
What about her divine intercessions?
So Desna's minor boon, for those at the end of the journey, she gives a deep sleep, allowing those who rest to completely recover for all hit points, remove any negative conditions, curses, or diseases.
That's pretty good for a minor boon.
Yeah. Moderate boon, Desna twist fortune in your favor, allowing you to re-roll a check once per day after determining its result and take the new result. So when you learn that you've critically failed at something really bad, it's like, oh no, let's try that again. And the major boon, which follows you with a swirling cloud of lights that grant you a fly speed and shine light around you.
What about her curses?
Her minor curse causes you to have mishaps in travel. You seem to always lose your way, have strange mishaps and other things that cause you to become slower anytime that you are traveling at any appreciable distance.
Wait, do you have this? Because when Google said it would take 30 minutes to get to the doctor's office, and you're like, it'll probably take 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 3/4 exploration speed because of losing your way and things like that. What did you do to anger Desna? Was it the Abigail Thune cosplay?
Oh no. Oh no. My Abigail Thune-ness is angered Desna.
Okay. What about the moderate curse?
The moderate curse causes misfortune to follow you in your travels. Requires you to perform acts of contrition or benevolence to keep it at bay. You must always roll twice and take the worst result. You can express your remorse and ignore the effect for 1d4 rounds by performing an action with the concentrate trait. Or you can perform a truly selfless act of compassion to ignore the effect for 1 day.
That's the moderate. What's the major?
The stars rebuke you for your ways. Anytime you were exposed to starlight, you are sickened 4 and slowed 1.
Yikes. Alright. Let's take a look at Erastil. God of family, farming, hunting, and trade. His wife, Jaidi, is a Aslanti deity with a similar-ish portfolio. And then his son, Cernunos, is a hunting god. And his daughter, Halkamora, is a little bit less lawful, probably, than Erastil would like. But he is Erastil, and he always likes, sticking with your family and farming communities, and is all about family values.
Yeah, so unlike a lot of other good deities, Erastil doesn't send followers out into the world to crush evil. He watches over those who devote their lives to family and community. Family is of vital importance. He's also primarily an agricultural deity. Who assists his followers with their everyday lives, and he when he grants his gifts, he prefers them to be more practical boons rather than flashy miracles.
Yep. He has a lot of practical sayings like "never trust a fool," which includes adventurers. Nothing is more satisfying than the fruits of a day's labor, and the hardest task becomes easy with a friend. Like, most of which are just, like, things that he believes in, but that last one is also pointing out that working together makes things possible. And Erastil's blessings and curses are as befitting of Erastil's very particular worldview.
With his minor boon, if you roll a critical failure to check to subsist in the wild, you get a failure instead.
With his moderate boon, when you attack with a longbow, you can ignore Longbow's volley trait, and longbows have double the normal range increment.
And with his major boon, you can cast Speak with Plants as a divine innate spell, and when you're in a healthy natural environment, the land will just sustain you without need for food or drink, and you can also cast the Calming with Nature ritual just by yourself without any secondary casters or secondary checks.
That's right. His minor curse curses your table, punishes you for relying on others' hard work. Any food you didn't grow, gather, or otherwise harvest yourself tastes like ash and leaves you fatigued.
The moderate curse, his beasts take a dislike to you. Animals have the attitude of animals toward you is 1 category worse.
And his major curse leaves you unable to have children or otherwise reproduce or propagate if you do so in a different manner. And it also affects your livestock, pets, and crops, which basically you are done as a farmer if you have that.
Yeah.
Your crops can't, like, make new crops, and your livestock and your pets, like, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, an adventurer doesn't care as much about that as the other ones. Like, I'd much rather not have all the animals in the world attack me, like in the movie The Birds. But, for a farmer, just the major curse, you're ruined. Gorham, our lord in iron.
Gorham
has the coolest allies entry.
Allies, none.
That's right.
For if someone were an ally, then they would no longer be a valid target for battle.
Yes. Like, obviously, Gorham might have some, like...
Temporary alliances for the sake of battle.
Or, like, good adversaries with good feelings about them. It's like, this is a worthy adversary who I always like going up against, and I don't bear them particular enmity. But he does bear particular enmity to Chakak, Norgorber, and Urdithoa. All of those have angered him in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Gorm is the god of war and battle, but likes the kind of war where you actually, like, go up and you fight them and not, like, sneakily poison someone or, like, be a coward and cast a bunch of spells from far away where nobody can get to you. You have to go up and prove your prowess in combat. The aphorisms are blood, not rust, because Gorm is very, very much about iron.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing is that Gorm also doesn't champion completely one-sided fights, like just going in and a knight drawing a sword against a helpless peasant might find his blade rust away.
A real
fight. It has to be a real fight.
Yep. And blood, not rust is saying that basically you should keep your armor clean, but if it must be dirty, it should be with your enemy's blood and not with the rust, because you haven't been able to keep it well. And also, you can sometimes use that to speak about a call to action against hopeless odds. And then iron-tongued is a descriptor that kind of goes along with silver-tongued, but is used to describe people who manage to say the right thing to start a fight. So it's like the opposite of silver-tongued, or maybe you did it on purpose. And then the Divine Intercessions, the minor boon, is you can draw a weapon with an interact action even if you do not have one. And it lasts as long as you continue to attack with it. And the moderate boon is going to give you forceful on all of your weapons. The major boon, when you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you're instead healed to half your maximum hit points and become doomed 1. Like an Einherjar, you will just continue to fight until eventually you die. So you literally cannot be knocked unconscious from damage. Just what will happen is on your 4th extra life or 5th, if you have Die Hard, you will die because you will become doomed 4.
Yes.
No surrender. A minor curse. Any armor you wear and shield you wield reduces its item bonus to AC by 2 and has worse hardness, hit points, and break threshold. Moderate curse is you've lost the glory of slaying worthy opponents, and all of your weapon and unarmed attacks decrease their damage dice by 1 step, and all your attacks are non-lethal. And the major curse makes you fatigued and slowed 1 the moment combat starts, and at the end of each of your turns, your slow condition increases by 1. So by the time you're at the end of your 3rd turn, and then therefore going into your 4th turn, you will not have any actions.
You want to do well in battle? Don't earn the major curse of the god of battle.
Yeah, because you're going to get what? Actually, I guess it's the end of the 2nd turn you'd be at slow 3. So you're going to get 3 actions in every fight. 2 on the 1st turn, 1 on the 2nd turn, unless someone hastes you. I hope that's enough to win, because
otherwise, you're just going to be a sitting duck.
Yeah. Gazra, the wind and the waves, is sort of a deity with a dual aspect and a dual nature that you can even see in this art here. And Gazra is both a deity of the sea, but also the sky, weather, and water. And each of the different aspects has some differences, but overall is neutral and is a major nature deity. And is, as Werner Herzog's name spelled backwards. Never let them say they didn't put Easter eggs in here.
Yes, and in general, like that, she is a goddess of the waves, and he is a god of the storm. Is the way that they're generally depicted.
That is the most common depiction. And there's also, you can see like the sort of more classical, like here's a watery side and the skyish side, but also the Mwangi depiction on the right hand page of just kind of these 2 faces that are connected together.
Yes.
And aphorisms, the storm also passes, is to be like, hey, you know what? Even if it's an emotional storm or like something's happening, but it's temporary and it's gonna move on.
Mm-hmm.
By the tide and the tempest, seals solemn oaths. And the divine intercessions, minor blessing is you always know direction and become trained in sailing lore. Moderate blessing is going to let you breathe underwater and get a swim speed. And major blessing is going to give you a bonus to all your speeds, a massive status bonus all the time, and a fly speed.
Oh, for when we get to the minor curse, we've got a fun comment there.
Oh, yeah. So we are at the minor curse, which is lightning begins to strike twice. You gain weakness 5 to electricity. Any natural magical bolts of lightning always target you rather than the other creatures around you.
There's the rogue in Ezekiel's group got that minor curse, and the Storm Order Druid of the group absolutely hated it.
I can imagine
see why.
That. Yeah. Moderate curse. The current of the waves fight against you, putting you at risk of drowning anytime you must swim. Losing swim speed, unless it's your only speed, in which case you go super slow. And athletics check to swim, roll twice and take the worst. And then the major curse, you're shunned by nature itself. All animals and non-sapient plant creatures are hostile to you. Mm-hmm. Your animal companions and familiars abandon you. Sapient plants' attitude towards you, like a leshy, begins 2 categories worse than normal, which usually makes them hostile because they were probably indifferent to you. Unless they're like, would have been your friend, now they are unfriendly. Or like someone helpful, like your fellow party member who's a leshy is now only indifferent to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, plants and animals might not attack you outright if it wouldn't normally be in their nature to you. It's just as you're walking around, like everybody's all the dogs are growling, the cats are hissing, everything is vocally expressing that.
And animals that might attack you will attack you. It's not good.
It's not good. Shall we go ahead and wrap it here?
What do you think? Do you want to wrap it here or do you want to do Iomade?
I think we can start with Iomade next time.
Alright. Then in that case, let's say goodbye to YouTube and then do our outro.
Sounds good.
Alright. Bye, YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.